Warped Tour was a music festival that combined extreme sports and punk music. As time went on, the festival evolved in a few different ways. Lineup and genre changes, adding comedians to the festival, and even having a stage specifically for DJs. But today we're gonna hyper focus on the time they invited YouTubers. They've been invited 2 years in a row, but never again when stories about child pornography, pedophilia, and backstabbing weirdos came into light. Let's find out what happened and why some bands actually hated having YouTubers a part of Warped Tour. On paper, having warped YouTubers is a great idea. These are people with internet influence and actually market themselves directly towards this Warped Tour crowd. So why wouldn't they be invited? It'll get more heads to the festival that want to meet these people. They can vlog the Warped Tour experience for the fans at home to see, thus promoting the festival. They can interview the bands and get crazy anime crossovers that'll make the viewers at home happy. And overall, it's really good content for these creators, so it's beneficial both ways. Nothing can go wrong. In 2014, the Warped YouTuber program was launched. This program was just a tent where a number of YouTubers would hang out and do meet and greets. They would go around the tour and interview bands and fans and do little 1-minute bits for the Warped Tour YouTube channel. Let's go through 2014's lineup, starting off with Bryan Stars. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump scare you. Bryan Stars was extremely popular for interviewing all these metal bands while looking normal, and he would ask them ridiculous questions like,
"You guys are porn stars. What do you think your porn star name would be?"
He was definitely the most popular of the bunch. Then we had Damon Fizzy, also known as D Fizzy, and Caitlin Witcher. They were vloggers that did YouTube challenges. They were basically known for being themselves on camera, which is pretty sick. We then had JohnnieGuilbert and Vincent Sear, who were known for pretty much the same thing, being themselves, but they also did music. And someone that was on this tour but wasn't officially in the program was Veeoneeye. He was invited by the tent Stay Happy, Stay Weird. He was just there to let his social media know, like, hey, I'm gonna be here at this time, come say hi, in hopes to sell more merch. The following year, for 2015, we had JohnnieGuilbert, Bryan Stars, and D Fizzy come back for round 2, along with Austin Jones and Jordan Sweeto. Austin Jones was another vlogger musician guy, and we're gonna get into his nonsense in a second. And Jordan Sweeto was a gamer, musician, vlogger, artist, and Vizzy's first man crush. There was a boatload of bull that came with some of these YouTubers, and we're gonna get to that later. I'm even gonna hit you with a where are they now portion because I think it's super interesting. But for now, I want to talk about the mixed reaction that a lot of bands and fans had about this YouTuber program. I am going by memory, but I'm pretty sure I remember a lot of bands not liking YouTubers on Warped Tour. The only thing I found was when Hands Like Houses, more specifically Trenton Woodley, the ex-vocalist of the band, throwing this temper tantrum about the program. I know you're probably not trying to read this entire Bible, but if you do want to read it, you can go ahead and pause the video now. The TLDR is he understood why these YouTubers were on Warped Tour, but he didn't like how long their meet and greet lines were. The YouTuber tent lines were so big, it was more than the bands. He thinks waiting in line for these meet and greets is taking away from what the festival is about, which is music. And he goes on to say some of these YouTubers and bands are too young to be put on this pedestal. They don't know how to use or handle their influence yet. Then he touches on this thing where a lot of fans will kind of do this weird competition on who's the biggest fan. Like, a lot of fans would talk about YouTubers or bands and say, I'm the biggest fan. No, I'm the biggest fan. And one thing they would do is say, oh, this person saved my life, just to one-up someone and prove that they're the biggest supporter. Woodley says it's dumb and toxic, and I can agree with that. But towards the end of the statement, it feels like that's when his ego is starting to show. He says shit like, I might be too old, but I don't find the appeal. These guys are mediocre journalists and personalities, and they shouldn't be paid to tour just for being recognized. In closing off the statement, he says that I think these people shouldn't have a platform outside of their own channels. When he was talking about the whole I'm the biggest fan thing, he was cooking, bro. He had something going on there. But at the end, he kind of came off as a hater. I understand the frustration because these bands have to work very hard to get where they're at. You gotta hop in a studio with a bunch of dudes and create music from scratch. You probably tour for a quarter to half of the year. You gotta invest time and money And then maybe you get a chance to play Warped Tour, which is a lot of musicians' dreams. Then here you have a bunch of good looking emo guys that turn on a camera, get clouded, and they could be on the tour just like you. I understand that one route is probably a lot less stressful than the other route, but it doesn't mean that they're undeserving, because it may not look like it, but they work hard too. And if a kid goes to Warped Tour to wait this 2-hour line to meet someone, who are you to tell them that they're not allowed to do that or they shouldn't do that? No one is forcing them, dog. Like, they probably went to Warped Tour specifically to meet these YouTubers. Maybe they have 2 hours to kill because one of their bands aren't playing right now. Maybe they're going to a few different Warped Tour dates and they decided, hey, maybe I can spend one of these days meeting my favorite YouTubers. They paid for their ticket, right? So just let them do their thing. Shut the f up. Warped Tour used to always experiment with new things, and I don't think constructive criticism is bad. I actually encourage it, but to say like, oh, these guys are mediocre at their job and they don't deserve a platform outside of their YouTube channels, in my opinion, that's a crazy thing to say. If you don't want them on the tour, go ahead and talk your shit. But if you're gonna say things like they're bad at their job, listen, dog, they're lying shit on yours. They must be doing something right. He even mentions how there's mediocre bands on the bill, and to me, it's giving off this vibe as if he has this very huge ego, and people giving attention to the YouTubers instead of him is just shattering his ego. But I think what it really boils down to is this ego thing. Bands are upset that their lines aren't as big as the YouTuber lines, so it's kind of like, who are these guys just rolling in with their big lines thinking they're all popular and shit? And you can argue that YouTubers have nothing to do with music. That's a fine argument to make, and I agree with you. But the reality is they do market towards these Warped Tour kids and they are bringing more in, so I think it makes sense to have them on the bill. Warped Tour also had a comedy tent that had a handful of comedians during the same year as the YouTubers were there, but nobody was pissing and shitting over the comedy tent because they didn't get the attention like the YouTubers did. They didn't get these huge crowds and lines. Now let's tackle this roster and get to the juicy bits, because as some of you may already know, we have some pieces of shits to yap about, and then we have others that aren't pieces of shits. 2014 was the calming before the storm. Nothing notable or public drama went down that I can remember, so we can dismiss 2 names because they're not really a part of the downfall. Those being Caitlin Witcher and Vincent Sear. This actually blew my mind. I never put 2 and 2 together and realized that this guy is the same person as this guy. Sear continued his content career journey and shifted his focus to streaming, which worked out really well for him. He's now a member of one of Twitch's biggest orgs, which is OTK. Along with figures like Mizkif, Emaru, Asmongold, S-Fan, and more. It's safe to say that he's doing pretty well. Then you have Caitlin Witcher. It looks like after Warp, she kept making content and tried some newer things like gaming and cooking, but she mostly uploaded classic styled vlogs and it didn't work out too well. So she called it quits at the start of this year, 2024. But she has been streaming on Twitch and she's pretty active there. And now, we hit the downfall. A few months after the tour, Veeoneeye got exposed for being a predator. 15 years old at the time, a girl named Anya came out and let the people know her experience with him. He was 20 years old at the time and they agreed to hang out in London, but she figured it was platonic. They stayed the night together in her father's apartment and Veeoneeye bought them alcohol. And just a reminder, she was only 15 when he bought them the drinks. Nothing happened sexually, but she believes that he was feeding her the drinks with the intentions of getting laid, because she states that Veeoneeye was more in control of how much she drank than she was. Veeoneeye made a video the next day explaining the whole thing. He said, yeah, it's true. I got us drinks, but it wasn't with the intentions of getting laid. It was just because it was awkward. It was an awkward conversation and he thought drinks would help them ease the tension. Anya's video got a good amount of attention and it inspired other girls to share their stories too, causing a snowball effect. Countless of girls shared their experience with Veeoneeye, and it's wild. He would
allegedly
pester young girls for nudes, and some of them would actually send it to him.
Allegedly.
And one of his ex-friends came out sharing a wild story. This girl went on a road trip with Veeoneeye and a handful of friends. Afterwards, they were tired, so they kicked it at V's house, and this girl fell asleep. She then woke up to Veeoneeye like groping her and kissing her neck and being fucking weird. She then started crying, and then that's when he got off of her.
Allegedly.
And I'm sure you can imagine when Veeoneeye got exposed, the audience didn't like this. He started uploading less and less, going from 40 videos in 2013 to 20 videos in 2014, 6 videos in 2015, and at the time of this recording, his last upload was 2 months ago, and it's only sitting at 6.2k views. His content shifted from the generic vlogs and challenges to more hippie lifestyle shit. I'm traveling the world to see nature, and I did this drug, and now I look like this, and I probably need deodorant. Pretty much all his socials are dead, averaging only 10 viewers on Twitch, not too much engagement on his Twitter or Instagram. Apparently, he has an OnlyFans now. He's probably putting his dick in a tree or something. Now, I'm sure you can imagine this isn't the best look for warped YouTubers. Some bands and fans already don't like the idea of warped YouTubers, and I'm sure this gives them more of a reason to like them less. As long as everyone else just stays in the clear, everything will be fine. It's just one bad apple. Every community has one bad apple. We're at 2015, and now things are about to get insane. After 2014 going so well for every other YouTuber, Bryan started acting funny. Vizzy, how funny we talking here? Hella, he's acting hella funny. He started cosplaying as a cute emo boy, but it didn't work out because he looks more like a scarecrow. He looks like a Sonic character. He looks like a mango seed when you're done sucking on it. He looks like a raggedy broom. He looks like a fucked up paintbrush. He looks like a poorly drawn anime character. How does your hair look greasy but dry at the same time? But he ended up launching this collaborative YouTube channel called My Digital Escape. This channel had 7 members. It featured Bryan Stars, JohnnieGuilbert, Alex Zarami, Jordan Sweeto, Kyle David Hall, Alex Ramos, and Austin Jones. Every YouTuber had one select day to upload on this channel. Now, the reason why I bring this up, because it may seem irrelevant, is because it played a part in the warped YouTuber's downfall. Even the organizer and founder of Warped Tour, Kevin Lyman, was involved, so make sure you listen up. The back end of the channel was ran by Bryan Stars. He was basically everyone's manager, taking 20% of their income. Austin Jones was a powerhouse for this channel. He got loads of views, he would sell merch, he was good looking, talented, overall the perfect concoction for a cash cow. And trust when I say, Bryan was aware. Right before Warped Tour 2015, D-Fizzy actually called out Austin Jones on something. He found out that Austin Jones was asking little ass girls for videos of them twerking. He even sent them a tutorial on how to do it.
Hey cutie, so this is like the first basic twerk move.
When Damon found this out, he brought it up to Bryan, being his manager, like, hey, just so you know, this is going on. So what did Bryan do? He just kind of brushed it off. So Damon decided to expose Austin on Twitter. Kevin Lyman then defended Austin Jones and told D-Fizzy, you should go to jail for bullying and slander. Even though Damon actually had proof of everything that was going on, but whatever. Then we find out later that Bryan was actually assisting Austin and like, hey man, do this and that to get out of this situation, trying to protect this actual pedophile because he just wants that sweet 20%.
Allegedly.
He's neglecting the fact that this pedophile is actually marketing towards his victims, and Bryan don't care, because him going to prison means less money for Bryan. At first, both Damon and Austin was kicked off of this program, but after more evidence came out and Damon begging to be put back on the tour, it happened. D-Fizzy was on Warped Tour again. Kevin even emailed D-Fizzy with this. Despite the drama, it looked like Warped Tour 2015 was actually a success, to the public eye at least. But I think it's safe to assume before this tour even started, Kevin already solidified the idea of YouTubers not being a thing in the next year. I'm sure the whole Warped YouTubers thing pushed more sales, but Warped Tour didn't really need it at that point. Kevin probably just wanted to avoid the headache and the drama. But if that didn't put the nail in the coffin, it was 100% this next part. After the tour ended, Bryan still continued My Digital Escape. At this point, we can dismiss Jordan Sweeto because he wasn't really a part of any of the drama. It looks like Jordan got super into animation at some point and still touches on music from time to time. But he's currently on a YouTube hiatus so he can focus on a big project that's in the works. He's still active on Instagram and Twitter, and Johnnie says it best. Hair still looking killer. We can also dismiss Austin Jones since his portion of the downfall is already over. We do have a beautiful update on him now though, because he's probably probably getting his ass beat in prison as we speak. He's been locked up since 2017 for possession of child porn, and he has to serve a minimum of 10 years. Moving on with the story, MDE went to shit. We're gonna call it MDE now because I have a problem saying digital for some reason. The cast of creators basically hated being managed by Bryan because he controlled everything. He would tell them what videos to make. He forced them to go on tour and do a performance, even though not all of them did music. If you go on tour, you gotta do something, and if they don't got something to do, I guess he wanted them to lick the floor. I don't know. The environment was stressful because Bryan was a boss, so the channel then disbanded. Everything would have been fine, and I think Bryan would still have a career today if he just let that channel rest. But his greed got in the way, and he created MDE 2. It had a new cast but kept the old channel, which was a spit in the face to the old cast because they put in this blood, sweat, tears, over sexualized content featuring that they didn't want to do into this channel to create this money machine, just so Bryan can be like, oh, thanks guys, I'm out, thank you for building this channel, and I'm gonna go profit off of it more without you guys, deuces. And that's when some of the creators came out and exposed Bryan for being an asshole. This is what happens when you get greedy, and I understand that he was the boss. I understand that this is business, but it doesn't make you less of a scumbag for doing this action. But after being exposed, he just abandoned the internet. Thank God. As for JohnnieGuilbert, he was one of the handful of people that came out and spoke about Bryan, and I'm happy to say he's doing better than ever now. Extremely active on every social media, including Threads, which I didn't know people still used. Good job, Johnnie. He's killing it on YouTube and Twitch, and lately he's been collabing with a lot of creators like Hassan, FaZe Rug, and Trisha Paytas. And last but definitely not least, because this guy is pretty much the hero of this story, we have DFizzy. He streams on Twitch but isn't active on YouTube or any platform anymore. He did come out and talk about Austin Jones when he got arrested and gave his input on Bryan's stars after MDE 2. He let everyone know that Bryan approached him offering to be a part of My Digital Escape 3 different times, but he denied it. He denied it because he knew how Bryan was when it came to business. He always wanted to be Bryan's friend because he knew there was some sort of cool guy in there, but whenever they hung out, it was always about money and business. And business Bryan couldn't be turned off, so they never really hung out. Bryan just used Damon for the thumbnails and titles. Anything that had to do with Bryan's stars was actually super fucking sad. With all that being said, if you were an organizer for Warped Tour, would you really want to include this hot mess of a scene into your festival? I'm sure Kevin Lyman saw this public fallout and he was like, nah man, I'm good. Not to say that every YouTuber that was involved with Warped Tour was bad, because it was only 3 evil motherfuckers out of the bunch to completely ruin it for everyone. Now click right here, because this is an entire hour of evil musician stories that you could use to fall asleep to or listen in the background.